Welcome to Specially Designed Instruction within the CKLA Core Knowledge Language Arts curriculum. The mission of the Department of Special Education is to provide all students with disabilities access to high-quality, specially designed instruction and resources through a continuum of services and supports that equips students and their families with the skills and competencies to exit Anne Arundel County Public Schools college, career, and community ready. The values of integrity, innovation, and inclusivity are at the core of this work. By the end of this presentation, teachers and staff will be able to define specially designed instruction and the importance of access to grade level curriculum, incorporate specially designed instruction strategies for students with disabilities within the core knowledge, language arts, skills, and knowledge lessons, determine appropriate delivery models for specially designed instruction within CKLA, and locate and utilize resources for specially designed instruction. As you know, Anne Arundel County Public Schools defines specially designed instruction as adapting the content, methodology, and delivery of the curriculum to meet the specific needs of an eligible student through the intentional selection of learning strategies that capitalize on the student's strengths. So what does it mean to adapt? The content is the curriculum based upon the state standards. This is what you are teaching. Some examples of adapting content include using instructional level text, shortened passages, and differentiated learning targets. Content should only be adapted for students who are on the alternate curriculum. Methodology is the instructional design of content and approach to instruction. These are the strategies and tools used to teach. Examples of adapting the methodology include chunking a text, adding manipulatives or visuals, and scaffolding the writing process. Delivery is how the instruction is provided based on the needs of the student. There are instructional practices and ways of teaching, such as using explicit instruction, providing pre-teaching or reteaching, or using direct instruction. No one is too anything to learn to read and write. They are not too physically, emotionally, communicatively, or cognitively challenged. Their hearing, vision, and behavior are not too impaired. They are not too disadvantaged or too old. No one is too anything to learn to read and write. Starting a new curriculum will be challenging for all teachers and students, but we must remember that all students have the right to access grade level curriculum and materials. Our job as special education teachers is to adapt the methodology and delivery of the grade level curriculum to ensure that students with disabilities have equal access. When receiving specially designed instruction, students will access grade level text and strategies. Special educators will need to plan for how to meet the specific needs of their students within the CKLA curriculum. This may include pre-teaching or reteaching of vocabulary or content using different instructional strategies, providing visual supports, or scaffolding instruction. You can use grade level texts from CKLA to address literacy goals and objectives from the IEP. One reason many students with significant disabilities struggle with vocabulary is that they have limited access to text for reading and listening. School-age students without disabilities learn about 3,000 new words each year. By third grade, most of those new words are acquired through reading. This access to new words is not possible when students are still learning to read independently. Therefore, we need to read aloud to students to give them access to the vocabulary they might otherwise never encounter. A key component of the CKLA knowledge domains includes read-alouds, where students listen to and interact with complex texts which may be above their independent or instructional reading levels. Research shows that a student's listening comprehension outpaces their reading comprehension until about age 13. The read-alouds in CKLA ensure that students interact with complex text to build their vocabulary and background knowledge from day one. Staying engaged in a read-aloud is difficult for many students. General education teachers and special education teachers will need to plan engagement strategies for read-alouds to be successful. CKLA embeds engagement strategies in many lessons, but you may choose to incorporate other strategies. When planning for instruction, consider how you will get students excited about the lesson and the unit. What engagement strategies are already included in the lesson? What engagement strategies will you incorporate? Think about how to incorporate engagement strategies while maintaining the integrity of the lesson outcome and pacing. Will a partner activity, movement activity, or nonverbal response best align with the purpose of the activity? For specific student needs, you may consider flexible seating options or allowing students to stand, use fidgets, and reinforce positive behavior. There are additional strategies on the AACPS Behavior Strategies Toolkit page, such as using timers and ways to catch students being good to reward positive behaviors. The Office of Elementary Reading has created a unit internalization protocol and a lesson internalization protocol, which are to be used when planning CKLA instruction. When completing the unit internalization protocol, special education teachers should also consider the following questions. What skills, concepts, or writing pieces align to the student IEP goals and objectives? What accommodations or modifications will be needed for the unit or domain assessment? How can pausing points be used for reteaching or pre-teaching the content, vocabulary, and skills students need to be successful in this unit? When completing the lesson internalization protocol, consider the lesson and associated text. Is it accessible to students with disabilities? Are there potential barriers which may prevent students from accessing the content, participating in the lesson, or completing the lesson's product or outcome? What prior knowledge or skills will students need to be successful? Is there any alignment to the student's IEP goals and objectives? Then, customize the lesson for students with IEPs by planning for accommodations and assistive technology, planning the tools and strategies to be used for SDI, and plan for reteaching needs based on the formative assessments, checks for understanding, or student performance data.
When completing the unit or lesson internalization protocol, it can be difficult to pinpoint the skills students may need to be successful, the level of scaffolding they may require, or where IEP goals and objectives align with instruction. Becoming familiar with the vertical alignment of Maryland College and Career Ready standards for ELA will provide answers to these planning questions and give you a better understanding of your students' present level of performance. The connected standards in CKLA are in brackets represented by letters and numbers. The letters refer to the standards domain and the numbers represent the grade level and the specific standard. For example, RL 3.3 is the abbreviation for Reading Literature 3rd grade standard number 3. When planning SDI, make sure to note the grade level standards listed before each lesson in the teacher's guide. CKLA lists the standards, which will be the primary focus of the lesson, and the standards included in the formative assessments. In Unit 1, Lesson 1 of the 3rd grade knowledge domain, pictured on this slide, the standard RL 3.3 is one of the targeted standards for instruction and is also included in the formative assessment. In this lesson, students will compare and contrast two characters from classic tales using a Venn diagram. To plan for SDI, it would be helpful to look at the vertical alignment of the standard to understand how I can best support my students. When looking on the vertical alignment charts for ELA standards, you can see that Reading Literature Standard 3 begins in pre-kindergarten. The standard becomes more complex each year, and within this CKLA lesson, my students will be taught and assessed on RL 3.3, the 3rd grade level of this standard. To figure out what prerequisite skills and supports my students need, I can back map and look at this standard in previous grade levels. So in order for my students to be successful with this standard, they will first need to be able to identify the characters, describe the characters using key details, and describe how characters respond or act during different events or challenges. Depending on my students' needs, I may choose to pre-teach the story elements, including the characters, using a story map or images. I could also select key details from the text so that students can sort those details into the Venn diagram. Or I could partially complete the Venn diagram so that my student is just focused on one character. The vertical alignment of ELA anchor standards can be found on marylandpublicschools.org or by searching Maryland ELA standards in Google. Since the vertical map gives you the steps and skills students need in order to be successful with grade level standards, this is also a great document to use when analyzing data and writing a student's present level of performance and their IEP goals and objectives. Take a moment to pause the video, open up the Maryland College and Career Ready Standards on your computer and bookmark it so you can easily return to it at a later time. Using standards to plan for instruction, there is a helpful document located on the bottom of the CKLA curriculum page for each grade level. This document is titled Planning Documents, Grade Level Alignment Charts. This document shows which standards are addressed in each skills or knowledge units for all grade levels. Using this document, I can easily see when my students' IEP goals and objectives will be addressed within the CKLA curriculum, or when I may need to plan an additional activity to meet those needs.
On the Special Education Professional Development Community page, located on Brightspace, we have posted 3 specific literacy resources for special education teachers related to CKLA. Located under the Literacy tab in the Elementary Literacy Resources section, there are strategies for specially designed instruction which could be used during CKLA knowledge and skills lessons. We have also included examples of SDI within knowledge and skills lessons at each grade level. You can pause this video here in order to locate these materials on Brightspace. We will be reviewing them in more detail on the next several slides. The CKLA SDI for Knowledge Domain Lessons resource includes ideas for SDI strategies for activities typically found in knowledge lessons, including read-alouds, application and writing activities, and independent or partner reading. While this resource is not a comprehensive list of SDI strategies, it provides some ideas and starting points that may align to the needs of some of your students. There are several resources within the curriculum that can be used for SDI as well. This includes the sidebar supports and pausing point lessons. Additional resources to support SDI are linked at the top of the document. Let's explore this document in more detail. In the area of read alouds, there are ideas for SDI before, during, and after the read aloud. For example, if my student has expressive language needs, I may need to provide answer choices for the open-ended questions usually included during read aloud. If my student has needs in the areas of processing speed or working memory, which impact their comprehension, I may need to pre-teach the read aloud using a story map with visuals. In the area of application and writing activities, strategies such as color coding, visuals and checklists, or using drawing as a pre-writing strategy are noted. When planning SDI, teachers should select strategies which meet their students' unique needs. Pause for a moment and think of a student on your caseload. Think about your students' needs in order to access literacy lessons. Which strategies from this resource would help meet the needs of your student during a read aloud? Are there other strategies that you might use to provide SDI for your student? The SDI for Skills Lessons document includes SDI strategies for phonological awareness, alphabetic principle, spelling, decoding, tricky words or sight words, language, grammar, and punctuation. The sidebar supports and additional activities within CKLA can also be used for SDI if they will meet the unique needs of your student. Again, the strategies on this document do not constitute a comprehensive list. These are just ideas to help you get started. For example, if my student has difficulty with visual discrimination, which impacts their ability to identify letters, I may use the alphabet arc for a matching activity. Or if my student's working memory impacts their ability to blend sounds, I may provide Elkonin boxes with manipulatives during a lesson that focuses on decoding. For independent or partner reading, I may use echo reading or choral reading to support a student with decoding needs. If you have students in grades K, 1, or 2 on your caseload, think of a specific student and their needs in the area of literacy. What strategies from this document could be used to meet their specific needs? The third resource is a collection of knowledge and skills lessons that incorporate specially designed instruction. This document includes links to a variety of sample lessons from each grade level. The lessons use a variety of formats, which are each linked at the bottom of the document. In some lessons, a specific student profile is identified and planned for. In others, there are a variety of options that could support different student needs for the specific activity. At the beginning of each section, Knowledge and Skills, there is also a link back to the SDI documents we just reviewed. Let's take a look at one example. This is an example of SDI strategies planned within a first grade knowledge lesson. The CKLA lesson plan is available in the training materials or on the Amplify app on ClassLink. This lesson is Grade 1, Knowledge Domain 1, Lesson 8, The Crowded Noisy House. You can pause the video here in order to locate the lesson plan from the teacher's guide. These SDI strategies were selected for a student with autism who has comprehension needs related to main idea, sequencing, and identifying the parts of a story. At the beginning of the lesson, there are 3 core vocabulary words to be taught: advice, pondered, and stunned. For the word ponder, we will use the thinking hand motion of putting our finger on our chin or mouth to look like we are thinking or pondering something. For the word shocked, we will practice making a surprised face. When reviewing the story from the previous day, Little Half Chick, we will reference the story map with pictures that was used during pre-teaching and instruction. When introducing the word rabbi, a character in today's story, we will provide the picture from the flip book so we can reference it as needed. During the read aloud, I will use the sidebar support to help my student, and a few others, listen with specific purpose and focus. Each of the identified students will have an animal character assigned to them and have a picture of the character. They will practice making the animal sounds before we read, and then make the animal sound when it appears in the story. Additionally, when we encounter the words pondered and stunned, students will be prompted to make the face or use the hand motion as a quiet reminder of the meaning of the word. During the read aloud, 2 additional questions will be included to address the student's IEP objectives. If he is at his seat during the read aloud, I will quietly ask him the questions. If he is at the carpet, he will be selected to answer at least one of these questions. During the word work activity, I will ask the students to repeat the sentence frames several times before working with their partner. My student has needs related to responding in complete sentences and using vocabulary words, so this rehearsal will support him. During the application activity, I will work with a small group of students, including my student, at the back table to complete the story map with pictures. The pictures are from the slide deck and will provide a visual support for the retelling of key parts of the story. For my student, this will also allow us to work on sequencing the events of the story within the story map. While I may not be able to co-teach the entire 60 minutes of the lesson, the general educator is able to deliver the SDI identified in the first 30 minutes of this lesson, based on our planning and the pre-made materials. They can use multisensory strategies for the vocabulary instruction, use the visuals to review the previous story and introduce this story, and assign the roles of characters using the pre-made image cards. So who can deliver specially designed instruction? SDI can be delivered by special educators, general educators, and instructional assistants. At least 50% of the time, the SDI should be delivered by a special educator. When and where are SDI delivered? The first part of this answer is based on the IEP. If students receive special education services within the general education setting for reading, writing, and/or learning behaviors, SDI should be provided during the literacy block and CKLA instruction. Reading comprehension and writing in all grade levels are addressed during the knowledge lessons. Foundational skills, including phonological awareness, phonics, word recognition, are all addressed in the skills lessons. If students do not require SDI for the entire literacy block, it should be delivered during the part of the lesson aligned best with the student's goals and objectives. If students receive special education services outside of the general education setting for reading, writing, or learning behaviors, they can be pulled during the portion of the CKLA lesson that best aligns with their goals and objectives to receive SDI using the CKLA curriculum. For example, if my student receives services to address decoding outside of general education, the services should occur during the skills block. The application activity in the knowledge lessons may be a good time to pull students out for SDI as it lends itself to small group instruction. However, if students need scaffolded instruction for comprehension needs outside the general education setting, the read aloud may be the more appropriate time. Additionally, consider pre-teaching and reteaching that may occur during the academic enrichment block or at the pausing point days. The accommodations, supplementary aids, and services on a student's IEP must be provided during all literacy instruction and assessment. If a student qualifies for verbatim reading in ELA, this accommodation should be used for accessing grade-level curriculum and materials. During phonics instruction and assessments, students should not receive this accommodation when applying the skills being taught. For example, after a lesson on decoding CVC words, we would expect a student demonstrate their understanding by reading a CVC word list or aligned decodable text independently. When administering the ELA quarterly assessments to students, teachers must provide students with all the accommodations listed on their IEP. Modifications of district-created assessments, such as eliminating answer choices or questions and changing reading passages, are not allowed. Allowable modifications, such as enlarging font for visually impaired students, will be completed at the central office level. Examples of accommodations that teachers must provide include using read and write for students who qualify for a verbatim reading accommodation, extended time, alternative testing environment, administering the assessment in chunks, using a scribe, and/or using specific tools such as organizers, highlighters, calculators, dictionaries, and keyboard. Please keep in mind that there are other assessments that are not part of the curriculum, such as the iReady diagnostic and DIBELS, which have other guidelines for accommodations, since they are diagnostic assessments that are not used for grades. Please review the AACPS District Assessment Manual for Elementary on the intranet to learn more about these guidelines. The Special Education Literacy Team is here to support you. We are Ellen Tolosin, supporting Network 3 and schools in the Meade and Severn Run feeders, and Mallory Neidhart, supporting Network 1 and schools in the Arundel, Northeast, and Severna Park feeders. We will be offering office hours to answer questions and support specially designed instruction for CKLA and literacy needs for students with disabilities. Office hours will be posted on Brightspace. You can also send an email to schedule a time to meet with us. We look forward to working with you and hope you have a wonderful start to the school year.